The afternoon sun beat down on Fort Garland, Colorado, as Lily Edwards counted the same 12 coins for the third time, her calloused fingers trembling as she spread them across the weathered counter of Dr. Hamilton's office. It was September 1878, and the mountain town was preparing for the harsh winter that would soon sweep down from the Sangre de Cristo peaks. But Lily could think of nothing except the fevered child sleeping fitfully in the boarding house 2 streets away. "Mrs. Edwards, I am afraid the medicine your son needs costs $20, Dr. Hamilton said gently, his gray eyes sympathetic behind wire-rimmed spectacles. "The fever has progressed, and without the proper treatment, I know." Lily's voice cracked as she stared at the meager collection of coins. $12.35. Every penny she had earned washing laundry, mending clothes, and scrubbing floors for the past 3 months. Her back ached from the work, her hands were raw and split from lye soap, but it still was not enough. It would never be enough. "Can I work for you?" "Clean your office, wash your instruments. Please, Dr. Hamilton. Tommy is only 4 years old. I cannot lose him too." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the grief of a woman who had already buried a husband. John Edwards had died 6 months ago in a mining accident up in the mountains, leaving Lily with a child to raise and debts that seemed to grow like weeds. She had sold everything they owned except the clothes on their backs, but the cost of living kept climbing faster than she could earn. Dr. Hamilton opened his mouth to respond when the door to his office swung open, bringing with it a gust of cool mountain air and a tall figure silhouetted against the afternoon light. Lily turned, brushing hastily at the tears that had begun to slide down her cheeks. The man who entered was unlike anyone she had seen in Fort Garland before. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of hard work and a life lived outdoors. His dark hair fell to his collar beneath a worn Stetson, and his sun-bronzed face was marked by a strong jaw and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore typical cowboy attire, dusty leather chaps, a faded blue shirt, and a gun belt that sat low on his hips. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were kind eyes, despite the weathered lines around them that suggested he had seen his share of hardship. "Pardon the interruption, Doc," the cowboy said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to fill the small office. "I was told you might be able to help with this shoulder. Horse threw me 2 days back, and it has not stopped aching since." "Of course, Mr. Grant. Please have a seat, and I will be with you momentarily." Dr. Hamilton gestured to a chair, then turned back to Lily with evident distress. "Mrs. Edwards, perhaps if you could give me a few days. Tommy does not have a few days." Lily scooped the coins back into her cloth purse, her movements jerky with barely suppressed panic. "I will find a way. I have to." She pushed past the cowboy without meeting his eyes, unwilling to let a stranger witness her complete humiliation. The September air felt thin in her lungs as she stepped onto the wooden boardwalk, the altitude of the mountain town making it hard to breathe. Or perhaps it was the fear that constricted her chest, the terrible certainty that she was about to watch her son die because she could not save him. "Madam, wait." The deep voice stopped her 3 steps from the doctor's door. Lily turned slowly, finding the cowboy standing in the doorway, his hat in his hands. Up close, she could see that he was younger than she had first thought, probably no more than 28 or 29, though the sun and wind had etched their mark on his features. "I do not need charity," she said stiffly, pride warring with desperation in her voice. "No, madam, I imagine you do not." Isaac Grant studied her face for a long moment, taking in the dark circles beneath her green eyes, the hollows in her cheeks that spoke of too many meals skipped so her child could eat. "But your son needs medicine, And sometimes accepting help is not about charity. It is about love. Before Lily could form a response, Isaac turned and walked back into the doctor's office. She stood frozen on the boardwalk, her mind reeling. Through the window, she could see him speaking to Dr. Hamilton, saw him reach into his vest pocket and pull out a leather wallet. Her heart began to pound as the cowboy counted out bills onto the counter. The door opened again, and Dr. Hamilton appeared with a brown bottle in his hands. "Mrs. Edwards, your medicine. Mr. Grant has settled your account." "I cannot," Lily began, but Isaac Grant was already walking past her, settling his hat back on his head. "You can and you will," he said quietly. "Go take care of your boy." He was halfway down the street before Lily found her voice. "Wait, sir, please, I must repay you." "I will work. I will find a way." Isaac stopped and turned, a faint smile touching his weathered features. "Name is Isaac Grant. I will be in town for a while, working at the Crawford Ranch just north of here. When your boy is well, if you still feel the need to settle accounts, you can find me there." Then he was gone, disappearing around the corner toward the livery stable, leaving Lily standing with the precious bottle of medicine clutched in her hands and a confusion of emotions swirling in her chest. She had no time to process them. Tommy needed her. The boarding house room was small and drafty, but Lily had scrubbed it clean and done her best to make it a home for her and Tommy. The boy lay on the narrow bed, his small face flushed with fever, his breathing shallow and rapid. At 4 years old, he looked even younger now, fragile as spun glass. His light brown hair was damp with sweat, and his hazel eyes were glazed when he opened them at the sound of her footsteps. "Mama." His voice was barely a whisper. "I am here, sweetheart. I have medicine." Lily poured the dosage carefully, her hands steadier now that she had hoped to hold on to. She lifted Tommy's head gently and helped him swallow the bitter liquid. "This will make you feel better. You just need to rest now. Will Papa be proud of me for being brave?" Tommy asked, his words slurring with exhaustion. Lily felt her heart crack in her chest. "Your Papa is very proud of you, so very proud. Now close your eyes and sleep." She sat beside him through the long afternoon and into the evening, bathing his forehead with cool water, administering the medicine at the intervals Dr. Hamilton had instructed. Slowly, gradually, the fever began to break. By morning, Tommy's breathing had eased and the terrible heat had left his small body. He slept peacefully for the first time in days. Only then did Lily allow herself to weep. She cried for her son who had nearly slipped away, for her husband who was gone forever, for the crushing weight of responsibility that pressed down on her shoulders every waking moment. And she cried with relief, with gratitude for a stranger who had given her back her child's life without asking for anything in return. 3 days passed before Tommy was strong enough to sit up and eat solid food. A week before he could walk around the small room without tiring. Lily spent every moment caring for him, using the last of their supplies to make thin soups and porridge, singing the songs her mother had taught her when she was a girl growing up in Kansas City. But even as she focused on Tommy's recovery, her thoughts kept returning to the cowboy with the storm-gray eyes. Isaac Grant. She turned the name over in her mind, wondering what kind of man paid a stranger's debts without expecting repayment. In her experience, people did not give something for nothing. There was always a price, always an obligation. Yet Isaac had walked away as if $20 meant nothing to him. $20. The amount haunted her. It would take months to earn that much money, and winter was coming. Already, the nights were growing cold, frost sparkling on the windows each morning. She would need to find work, steady work, if she and Tommy were to survive until spring, when Tommy was finally well enough to be left with Mrs. Chen. the elderly Chinese woman who ran the boarding house and had shown Lily unexpected kindness. Lily set out to make inquiries about employment. Fort Garland was not a large town. Nestled in the San Luis Valley, with the mountains rising dramatically to the west. It had been established as a military fort in 1858 to protect settlers from conflicts with the Utes. Though the fort itself had been abandoned by the Army a few years ago, the town had persisted, serving ranchers, miners, and the occasional travelers passing through on their way to the San Juan Mountains. The general store had no work. The hotel was fully staffed. The saloon owner looked her up and down with an expression that made her skin crawl before offering employment she would never accept. By midday, Lily's hope was fading. She stood on the boardwalk, watching the streets of Fort Garland bustle with activity, and felt the familiar weight of despair settling over her shoulders. Mrs. Edwards. She turned to find Dr. Hamilton approaching, his black medical bag in hand. "Good afternoon, Doctor." "I am glad to see you. How is young Tommy?" "Much better, thanks to you, and to Mr. Grant." Lily hesitated, then forged ahead. "Dr. Hamilton, I am looking for work. Do you know of anyone in town who might need help? I can cook, clean, sew, do laundry, anything honest." The doctor studied her thoughtfully. "Have you considered asking at the Crawford Ranch? They are always looking for help in the kitchen, especially with winter coming and a full crew to feed. I believe Mr. Grant mentioned he was working there." Heat flooded Lily's cheeks. "I could not possibly, Mrs. Edwards. I have been a doctor for 30 years, and I have learned that pride is a luxury that few can afford." His voice was gentle but firm. "The Crawford Ranch is 5 miles north of town. Mrs. Crawford is a fair woman, and she pays honest wages. It would be foolish not to inquire." He was right, of course. Lily knew it even as every fiber of her being resisted the idea of facing Isaac Grant again. But Tommy needed food, needed warm clothes for the winter, needed a roof over his head that did not depend on the charity of Mrs. Chen. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the sun turning the peaks of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains gold and pink. Lily dressed in her best remaining dress, a faded blue calico that she had mended until the stitches were nearly invisible, and braided her long, light brown hair into a coronet around her head. Tommy was well enough now to play quietly with the wooden horse that had been his father's last gift to him, and Mrs. Chen promised to watch him while Lily made the journey to Crawford Ranch. The walk took nearly 2 hours. The road north from Fort Garland was well traveled, cutting through the high valley grassland that would soon turn brown and brittle with winter. Cattle dotted the landscape, and in the distance, she could see the mountains standing sentinel. The air was thin and cold, carrying the scent of sage and pine. By the time the ranch buildings came into view, Lily's feet ached and her breath came in visible puffs. Crawford Ranch was larger than she had expected. The main house was a sturdy 2-story structure built of local timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Surrounding it were various outbuildings: a massive barn, corrals, a bunkhouse, storage sheds, and what looked like a separate kitchen building. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys, and she could hear the sounds of men working, horses whinnying, the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil from the smithy. Lily approached the main house on legs that felt suddenly unsteady. Before she could knock, the door swung open to reveal a woman in her early 50s, with iron-gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and sharp blue eyes that assessed Lily in a single glance. "Help you?" the woman asked, not unkindly. "My name is Lily Edwards. Dr. Hamilton suggested I might inquire about work. I understand you might need help in the kitchen." The woman's expression softened slightly. "Martha Crawford, come in out of the cold." The interior of the house was warm and welcoming, with polished wood floors and furniture that spoke of prosperity without ostentation. Martha Crawford led Lily through to a large kitchen that smelled of bread and coffee. "My cook, Rosa, broke her leg last week," Martha explained, gesturing for Lily to sit at the thick wooden table. "She will be laid up for at least 2 months, maybe longer. I have been managing with help from the ranch hands' wives, but I need someone who can handle cooking for 15 men 3 times a day, plus my family. It is hard work, long hours. I pay $30 a month plus room and board." $30. More than Lily had dared hope. "I am a hard worker, Mrs. Crawford. I can cook, and I do not mind long hours." "You have a child," Dr. Hamilton mentioned. "A son." "Yes, Madam Tommy. He is 4 years old. He has been ill, but he is recovering now. He is a good boy, quiet and well-behaved." Lily held her breath, waiting for the refusal that was sure to come. Martha Crawford studied her for a long moment. "There is a small cabin out past the bunkhouse. It has been used for storage, but it is sound. You and your boy can live there. He will need to stay out from underfoot during working hours, but I imagine he can manage that." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "Yes, madam. Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. You will not regret this." "I am sure I will not. Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes, absolutely." Lily stood, then hesitated. "Mrs. Crawford, I should mention that I owe money to one of your ranch hands, Isaac Grant. I intend to repay him from my wages, and I wanted you to know that the debt exists, in case there is any question of propriety." Martha's eyebrows rose. "Isaac Grant paid a debt for you?" "He paid for medicine for my son when I could not afford it. $20. He asked for nothing in return, but I will repay him." A peculiar expression crossed Martha Crawford's face, something between surprise and approval. "Isaac Grant is my foreman, Mrs. Edwards. He has been with us for 3 years, and he is one of the finest men I have ever known. But he is not the type to accept repayment for what he would consider a simple act of decency. You may find that conversation more difficult than you anticipate. Nevertheless, I must try." Martha nodded. "Fair enough. Come back tomorrow at dawn. Bring your boy. We will get you settled into the cabin, and then you can start with breakfast." The walk back to Fort Garland felt shorter, Lily's steps lighter despite her exhaustion. $30 a month, a place to live. She and Tommy would survive the winter. More than survive, they would be safe, warm, fed. The relief was almost overwhelming, but beneath the relief ran a current of apprehension. Isaac Grant was the foreman. She would see him every day, serve him meals, work in a place where he held authority. The man who had saved her son's life without asking anything in return. She did not know how to face that kind of generosity, did not know what it meant or what might be expected of her despite Martha Crawford's assurances. Tommy was delighted by the news of their move to the ranch. "Will there be horses, Mama? Can I see the horses?" "We will see, sweetheart. You must promise to be very good and stay out of the way while Mama works." "I promise. I will be so good that nobody will even know I am there." Lily pulled her son close, breathing in the little boy scent of him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her chest. He was alive. He was healthy. Everything else she would find a way to manage. The cabin at Crawford Ranch was small but sturdy, with a single room that held a narrow bed, a small stove, a table and 2 chairs, and several wooden crates for storage. Someone had cleaned it recently, and there was a stack of firewood beside the stove, blankets folded on the bed, even a rag rug on the floor. It was more than Lily had dared hope for. "It will be perfect," she told Martha Crawford, who had helped her carry their few belongings from the wagon that had brought them from town. "Thank you. Breakfast is at 5:30. The men start work at dawn and they will be hungry." Rosa left her recipes in the kitchen and the pantry is well stocked. If you need anything, you let me know. Martha paused at the door, then added, "The men here are good men, Mrs. Edwards. They will respect you, but if any of them give you trouble, you come straight to me or to Isaac. Understood?" "Yes, madam." Lily spent the rest of the day settling Tommy into their new home, unpacking their possessions and familiarizing herself with the ranch kitchen. It was larger and better equipped than any kitchen she had ever worked in, with a massive iron stove, long preparation tables, and shelves lined with pots, pans, and dishes. Rosa's recipe book was a treasure trove of meals designed to fuel working men. Biscuits and gravy, fried steaks, roasted chickens, beef stew, beans and bacon, cobblers and pies. She did not see Isaac Grant that first day. Part of her was relieved. Part of her was disappointed, though she refused to examine that feeling too closely. The next morning, Lily woke in darkness and made her way to the kitchen, leaving Tommy still sleeping in the warm cabin. By the time the sky began to lighten, she had biscuits in the oven, bacon sizzling, eggs ready to fry, and coffee boiling. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, her mind focused on the work. The men began arriving as the sun cleared the eastern horizon, stomping into the dining hall adjacent to the kitchen in waves of cold air and masculine energy. They were ranch hands, cowboys, men who worked from dawn to dusk tending cattle, mending fences, breaking horses. They were polite, tipping their hats and offering quiet good mornings, but Lily could feel their curiosity. Isaac Grant entered last, and Lily felt his presence before she saw him. He was dressed for work, his shirt sleeves rolled up despite the cold, his hands and forearms already showing the day's dirt. When their eyes met across the dining hall, something passed between them, a connection that made Lily's breath catch in her throat. "Mrs. Edwards," he said quietly, nodding. "Mr. Grant." She could barely force the words past the sudden tightness in her throat. "Thank you for what you did. For Tommy, I plan to repay you from my wages here. That is not necessary. It is to me." They stood staring at each other while the noise of the dining hall swirled around them. Finally, Isaac said, "Your boy is well. Yes, completely recovered thanks to you." "I am glad." He paused as if he wanted to say more, then simply nodded again and moved to take a seat with the other men. Lily returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding inexplicably. She told herself it was simply gratitude, the natural response to someone who had shown her kindness. But as she served breakfast, refilling coffee cups and bringing fresh biscuits to the table, she found her gaze drawn repeatedly to Isaac. He ate in silence, listening to the chatter of the other men, occasionally offering a quiet word or a slight smile. There was a steadiness to him, a quality of calm strength that drew her despite her determination to remain detached. The days fell into a rhythm. Lily rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, cleaned the kitchen, prepared lunch, cleaned again, made dinner, then stumbled back to the cabin to collapse into bed beside Tommy. It was exhausting work, but it was honest, and at the end of each week, Martha Crawford counted out Lily's wages in silver coins that felt like wealth beyond measure. Tommy thrived at the ranch. The little boy was naturally curious and friendly, and despite his mother's instructions to stay out of the way, he soon became a fixture around the ranch buildings. The cowboys adopted him as an unofficial mascot, teaching him to tie knots and whittle small figures from pieces of scrap wood. Martha Crawford's husband, Robert, a gruff man in his 60s, was surprisingly gentle with Tommy, letting the boy follow him around while he checked on the cattle in the near pastures. But it was Isaac Grant who truly captured Tommy's admiration. The foreman treated the boy with the same quiet respect he showed everyone, never talking down to him or treating him as a nuisance. When Tommy begged to see the horses, Isaac took time from his work to walk the boy through the stable, explaining the name and temperament of each animal. When Tommy asked endless questions about cowboys and cattle and the mountains, Isaac answered patiently, his deep voice gentle. Lily watched these interactions with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Tommy was forming an attachment to Isaac, looking up to him with the hero worship of a boy who had lost his father. And if she was honest with herself, she was forming an attachment too. Despite her best efforts to remain professionally distant, she found herself looking forward to the meals when Isaac would be present, found excuses to bring fresh coffee to the men when they were working near the house, listened for the sound of his voice outside the kitchen window. It was foolish, she told herself. Dangerous. She could not afford to develop feelings for Isaac Grant. She owed him money, worked for the ranch where he was foreman, had a child to support, and no room in her life for complications. And yet, her heart refused to listen to logic. October arrived, bringing colder temperatures and the first light snowfall. The ranch was preparing for winter, the men working long hours to ensure the cattle were brought down from the high pastures, fences were mended, feed was stored, and buildings were sealed against the coming cold. Lily added extra food to every meal, knowing the men needed the fuel to sustain their labor. One evening, as she was cleaning up after dinner, Isaac appeared in the kitchen doorway. Most of the ranch hands had retired to the bunkhouse, and the kitchen was quiet except for the sound of water being poured into the washing basin. "Mrs. Edwards, do you have a moment?" Lily turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Of course, Mr. Grant. Is something wrong with the meals?" "No, the food is excellent, best we have had since Rosa took her tumble." He stepped into the kitchen, removing his hat. "I wanted to talk to you about Tommy." Fear clutched at Lily's heart. "Has he been causing trouble?" "I have told him to stay out of the way. He is no trouble at all," Isaac interrupted gently. "Quite the opposite. He is a fine boy, Mrs. Edwards. You should be proud." The knot in Lily's chest loosened slightly. "Then what is it?" Isaac turned his hat in his hands, a gesture that seemed uncharacteristically uncertain for a man usually so self-assured. "Winter is coming on hard. Tommy needs proper clothing, warm boots, a good coat. I know you are putting aside money to repay me, but I wonder if you might consider using those funds for your son instead. I will provide for my son, Mr. Grant, and I will repay my debts." Lily heard the stiffness in her own voice, the pride that Dr. Hamilton had warned her about. "I am sure you will." Isaac met her eyes steadily. "But there is no debt between us, Mrs. Edwards. There never was. You paid $20 for medicine. That is a debt. I gave money to a doctor to help a sick child. That was my choice, freely made. You owe me nothing." "Why?" The word burst from Lily's lips before she could stop it. "Why would you do such a thing for strangers?" Isaac was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough with emotion. "Because I know what it is to be helpless. To stand by and watch someone suffer and be unable to help. Because I have made mistakes in my life, Mrs. Edwards, and maybe doing something right for once matters. Because when I looked at you in that doctor's office, counting those coins with your hands shaking and your heart breaking, I saw courage. I saw a mother who would do anything for her child. And I thought if I could ease that burden even a little bit, then maybe all the wrong I have done might be balanced out just slightly." Lily felt tears burning in her eyes. "What wrong could you possibly have done? You are a good man, Mr. Grant. Everyone at this ranch speaks highly of you." "I have not always been a good man." Isaac looked away, his jaw tightening. I have done things I am not proud of, made choices that haunt me, but that is my burden to carry, not yours. I simply want you to know that you owe me nothing. Whatever debt you think exists, I forgive it. Use your money to take care of your boy." He settled his hat back on his head and turned to leave. Lily watched him go, her heart pounding, tears sliding down her cheeks. She did not understand this man, did not understand his generosity, or his pain, or the way he made her feel like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. But she was beginning to understand that Isaac Grant was unlike any man she had ever known. The following Sunday, Lily took Tommy into Fort Garland to attend church services and purchase winter supplies. With her wages and the money she had been setting aside, she was able to buy Tommy a warm coat, sturdy boots, thick socks, and a knitted hat and gloves. The boy was thrilled, twirling in his new coat until Lily laughingly told him to settle down. On the walk back to the ranch, Tommy chattered happily about everything and nothing, his small hand warm in hers. The afternoon sun was bright on the valley floor, though the mountain peaks were already white with snow. Lily felt a contentment she had not experienced in months, a sense that perhaps life was finally becoming manageable. They were within a mile of the ranch when Tommy suddenly tugged on her hand. "Mama, look, it is Isaac." Lily looked up to see a rider approaching from the direction of the ranch. Even at a distance, she recognized Isaac's tall figure on a big bay horse. Her pulse quickened inexplicably. Isaac reined in beside them, his eyes quickly assessing them both. "Mrs. Edwards, Tommy." "Everything all right? We went to town for supplies," Tommy announced proudly. "I got a new coat. See, very fine coat," Isaac agreed solemnly. Then to Lily, "You walked all the way from town. It is not so far. It is 10 miles round trip and the days are growing short." Isaac dismounted in a fluid motion, then lifted Tommy up into the saddle before Lily could protest. "You walk. I will lead the horse with Tommy. He should not be on his feet so much after being sick." "I am strong enough," Lily began. "I am sure you are. Humor me." They walked in companionable silence, Tommy delighted to be riding even if the horse was only walking. Lily was acutely aware of Isaac beside her, his long strides matching her shorter ones, the easy way he controlled the horse with just a light hand on the reins. "Mr. Grant," she said finally, "I have been thinking about what you said about the debt." "There is no need, please let me finish." Lily took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "I cannot simply forget that you helped us. It would not be right. But I wonder if we might reach a compromise." Isaac glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "What sort of compromise?" "Let me cook for you. Special meals, beyond my regular duties. Pies, cakes, whatever you like. It would not truly settle the debt, I know, but it would let me feel as though I was giving something back." A slow smile spread across Isaac's weathered face, transforming his features. "You want to bake me pies? If you like pie, yes." Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks. It sounded foolish when he said it like that. "Mrs. Edwards, I like pie just fine, but you do not need to bribe me with baked goods to ease your conscience." "It is not a bribe, it is gratitude." She met his eyes steadily. "Please let me do this." Isaac studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. If it will make you feel better, I will accept your gratitude pies, though I still maintain there is no debt between us." "Noted," Lily said, feeling absurdly pleased. That evening, after Tommy was asleep and her regular kitchen duties were completed, Lily made an apple pie from Rosa's recipe book, using dried apples from the ranch's stores and adding extra cinnamon. The kitchen was warm and quiet, the work soothing in its familiarity. As she crimped the edges of the crust, she thought about Isaac's words, about the pain she had heard in his voice when he spoke of mistakes and wrong choices. What had happened in his past to leave such shadows? The next morning, She presented the pie to Isaac with the breakfast dishes. He accepted it with a quiet thank you and a look that made her heart skip. That evening, the pie tin was returned to the kitchen, scraped clean with a note tucked inside written in careful masculine script. "Best pie I've had in years. Thank you." Lily tucked the note into her apron pocket and tried to ignore the warmth spreading through her chest. November arrived with serious cold and regular snowfall. The ranch hunkered down, the men's work shifting to maintenance tasks closer to the buildings, caring for the horses and the cattle that had been brought into the near pastures. Lily's kitchen became a warm haven, always full of good smells and hot food. She fell into the habit of baking something special for Isaac once a week. Pies, mostly, but also cakes and cookies and sweet breads. He always accepted them with quiet thanks and returned the dishes clean, sometimes with a note, sometimes with a small gift. A handful of wildflowers before the first freeze, a carved wooden toy for Tommy, a pair of warm mittens that he claimed he had no use for but that fit Lily's hands perfectly. They began to talk during the quiet moments when the kitchen was empty and the ranch was settled for the evening. Isaac would appear in the doorway, ostensibly to discuss ranch business or check on supplies, but he would linger, leaning against the doorframe, sharing stories about the ranch, the land, the cattle. Lily found herself sharing as well, telling him about her childhood in Kansas City, her marriage to John, the dreams they had shared of building a good life in Colorado. "He was a good man," she said one evening, kneading bread dough while Isaac sat at the kitchen table repairing a broken bridle. "John, he worked so hard. He truly believed that if he just worked hard enough we would prosper. But the mine was dangerous, and the owners did not care about safety. They just wanted the ore brought out as quickly and cheaply as possible." "I am sorry for your loss," Isaac said quietly. "I am sorry too, not just for myself but for Tommy. He barely remembers his father now. He was so young." Lily shaped the dough into loaves, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Sometimes I wonder if I failed them both. If I should have insisted we stay in Kansas City, not come west." "You cannot think like that. It will drive you mad with what ifs." Isaac's voice was rough. "John made his choices. You made yours. You both did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Is that how you deal with your regrets?" The words were out before Lily could stop them, too personal, too probing. Isaac was silent for so long she thought he would not answer. Finally, he said, "I try. Does not always work." "What happened?" Lily asked softly. "You do not have to tell me, but if it would help to talk about it." Isaac set down the bridle and looked at his hands. "I grew up in Texas. My father was a hard man, quick with his fists and his temper. I left home at 16 and fell in with a bad crowd. We did some things that could have gotten us hanged if we had been caught. Stole cattle, held up a few wagons, nothing violent but illegal all the same." Lily felt her chest tighten. "What made you stop?" "We robbed a family traveling west. They did not have much, but we took what they had. There was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, and she looked at me with these huge eyes while her mother was crying and her father was trying to protect them. And I saw myself through that child's eyes, saw what I had become." Isaac's voice was thick with emotion. "I walked away that night. Never went back. Spent the next few years drifting, working honest jobs, trying to make up for what I had done." "You were young," Lily said. "You made mistakes, but you changed. That takes courage." "Does it?" Isaac looked up, his gray eyes haunted. "Or does it just mean I finally developed a conscience? Those people I robbed, that family, they did not care about my reasons or my regrets. Their lives were made harder because of me." Lily crossed to the table and sat down across from him. "Isaac, you cannot carry that guilt forever. Yes, you made mistakes. But you have spent years since then being a good man, an honest man. That has to count for something. Does it count when I still lie awake some nights thinking about all the wrong I did? It counts because you care, because you changed. Because you are the kind of man who would pay for medicine for a stranger's child and call it nothing. Lily reached across the table and placed her hand over his. His skin was warm and calloused, his fingers strong. You are a good man, Isaac Grant. I wish you could see yourself the way others see you. Isaac turned his hand over, gently capturing her fingers in his. The touch sent warmth racing up Lily's arm, a connection that felt both frightening and inevitable. They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, eyes locked, something unspoken passing between them. "Lily," Isaac said, his voice rough and low. It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it on his lips made her breath catch. We should not, I know," Lily whispered, but she did not pull her hand away. "You work here. I am the foreman. It would not be proper, I know. And you deserve better than a man with my past. That is not for you to decide." The words came out stronger than Lily had intended. She squeezed his hand. "I know my own mind, Isaac. I know what I see when I look at you, and I see a man of honor, a man of kindness, a man I trust." Lily, whatever he was going to say, was interrupted by the sound of running footsteps. Isaac released her hand and stood just as Tommy burst into the kitchen, his face flushed with excitement. "Mama! Isaac, come quick! There is a baby calf being born in the barn." The moment was broken, but as Lily followed Tommy and Isaac out into the cold November night, she felt the lingering warmth of Isaac's touch and knew that something had shifted between them, something that could not be taken back. December brought deep snow and bitter cold that swept down from the mountains, turning the ranch into a world of white. The work was harder now, the men battling the weather to keep the cattle fed and the buildings maintained. Lily's kitchen became the heart of the ranch, the one place that was always warm, always welcoming, always full of good food and hot coffee. Tommy turned 5 years old on a snowy afternoon. Lily baked a cake and invited the ranch hands to celebrate, and they came with small gifts they had made themselves. A whittled horse, a braided rope, a smooth stone from the creek bed. Isaac gave Tommy a pair of child-sized leather gloves that he had clearly made himself, the stitching careful and even. "So you can help with the horses when you are bigger," Isaac said, ruffling Tommy's hair. The boy threw his arms around Isaac's waist. "Thank you. You are the best." Over Tommy's head, Isaac's eyes met Lily's. The look they shared was full of tenderness and longing and hope. In that moment, Lily admitted to herself what she had been trying to deny for weeks. She was falling in love with Isaac Grant. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. The days grew shorter, the nights longer. Christmas approached, and the ranch prepared for the holiday with the kind of determined cheer that frontier people developed to combat the winter darkness. Martha Crawford organized the decorations, enlisting Lily's help to string popcorn and cranberries, to bake gingerbread and sugar cookies, to prepare a feast for Christmas dinner. On Christmas Eve, after the evening meal was finished and the kitchen cleaned, Lily found Isaac waiting outside her cabin. Snow was falling gently, catching in his dark hair and on the shoulders of his heavy coat. He held something in his hands. "I made this for you," he said simply, holding out a wooden box. "I am not much of a craftsman, but I thought you might have use for it." Lily opened the box to find it lined with soft fabric, divided into compartments perfect for storing her few precious possessions. Her mother's locket, the letters from John, the coins she was saving. The wood was sanded smooth as silk, the joints fitted with care. "Isaac, it is beautiful." She looked up at him, this man who had changed her life in so many ways and felt her heart swell with emotion. "Thank you. Lily, I need to tell you something." Isaac stepped closer, his breath forming white clouds in the cold air. "I know I should not say this. I know all the reasons this is not wise, but I cannot keep silent anymore. I care for you, more than care. I think I have been falling in love with you since the day I saw you in the doctor's office, so scared and brave and determined. And I love your son like he was my own. I cannot promise you wealth or an easy life, but I can promise you honesty and loyalty and a man who will spend every day trying to be worthy of you." Lily felt tears freezing on her cheeks. "You already are worthy, Isaac. You have been from the start, and I love you too. I think I have been falling in love with you for months without admitting it to myself." Isaac cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the roughness of his calloused palms. "Are you sure? There is my past to consider. I would never want to bring shame on you or Tommy." "Your past is just that, the past. It is the man you are now that matters to me." Lily covered his hands with hers. "I am sure, Isaac. I have never been more sure of anything." He kissed her then, a gentle kiss full of promise and hope. Snow fell around them, the night was cold, but Lily felt nothing but warmth. When they finally drew apart, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I want to marry you, Lily. I want to be a husband to you and a father to Tommy. I want to build a life with you, a real family, but I will not rush you. We can take all the time you need." "I do not need time," Lily said, her voice steady and sure. "I know what I want and I want you. Yes, Isaac, I will marry you." They were wed in Fort Garland 3 weeks later on a bright January morning in 1879, with Dr. Hamilton serving as one witness and Martha Crawford as the other. Tommy stood between them during the ceremony, holding Lily's hand on one side and Isaac's on the other, grinning so wide his face seemed likely to split. The Crawford family gave them a wedding gift, the small cabin they had been living in, along with a parcel of land adjacent to the ranch. Robert Crawford offered Isaac a partnership in the ranch, making him part owner in recognition of his 3 years of dedicated work. "You are family now," Martha said simply, embracing Lily. "This is where you belong." That night, in the cabin that was now their home, Lily and Isaac lay together in the narrow bed while Tommy slept peacefully in a smaller bed Isaac had built in the corner. Moonlight streamed through the window, turning the snow-covered world outside into a landscape of silver and shadow. "I never thought I could be this happy again," Lily whispered, her head resting on Isaac's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Neither did I." Isaac's arms tightened around her. "I spent so many years running from my past, thinking I did not deserve peace or love or a home. And then I met you and realized that maybe redemption is not about forgetting what you have done wrong. Maybe it is about choosing to do right every day going forward. You have already redeemed yourself 1,000 times over," Lily said. "You saved my son's life. You gave us hope when we had none. You showed us what love really means." "No," Isaac said softly. "You saved me, you and Tommy. You gave me a reason to be the man I always wanted to be." They lay in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the wind outside and the crackle of the fire in the stove. Finally, Lily said, "What do you think the future holds for us?" Isaac was quiet, considering. "I think we will work hard and love well. I think we will raise Tommy to be a good man. I think maybe someday we will have more children if we are blessed. I think we will watch the seasons turn and the years pass and we will build something lasting. A family, a home, a legacy of love." "That sounds perfect," Lily said, and meant it with her whole heart. The years proved Isaac right. They worked the land, expanding their small holding gradually, raising cattle and horses. Tommy grew tall and strong, learning ranching from Isaac and developing into a young man of integrity and kindness. When he was 8, Lily gave birth to another son, whom they named John after Lily's first husband, honoring his memory while celebrating their future. 2 years after that, a daughter arrived, whom they named Sarah, and she had her father's gray eyes and her mother's gentle spirit. Isaac became known throughout the San Luis Valley as a man of his word, someone who could be trusted, who treated everyone fairly regardless of their station. The shadows of his past faded as the years of honest living piled up, replaced by a reputation built on integrity and hard work. Lily divided her time between helping with the ranch, raising their children, and working alongside Martha Crawford, who became like a mother to her. She never forgot the desperate fear of counting coins in a doctor's office, never took for granted the security and love that now surrounded her. She taught her children to value kindness above all else, to help those in need, to judge people by their actions rather than their past. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac and Lily stood on the porch of the house they had built to replace the small cabin, watching their children play in the yard. The mountains rose majestically to the west, their peaks white with snow even in summer, eternal and unchanging. "Do you ever regret it?" Isaac asked, his arm around Lily's waist. "Marrying a man with my history." Lily turned to look at him, this man who had become her whole world, whose love had redeemed them both. Gray was beginning to show in his dark hair, and the lines around his eyes had deepened, but to her he was as handsome as the day she had first seen him in the doctor's office. "Never," she said firmly. "You gave me everything, Isaac. You gave me life when I thought I had nothing left to live for. You gave my son a father. You gave me a family and a home and a love I never dreamed I would find again. If I could go back to that day in Fort Garland, knowing everything that would happen, I would not change a single moment. Not even the fear, the desperation, not even that." Lily reached up and touched his face gently. "Because that fear led me to you. That desperation brought us together, and every moment of pain was worth it to arrive here to this life with you." Isaac kissed her softly, a kiss that spoke of years of love and devotion, of promises kept and dreams realized. When they drew apart, he said, "I love you, Lily Grant, today and every day for the rest of my life." "And I love you," Lily replied. "My cowboy, my hero, my heart." Below them, Tommy was teaching his younger siblings to rope a fence post, demonstrating the technique Isaac had taught him years ago. Little John was all concentration, his tongue caught between his teeth as he tried to master the throw. Sarah was laughing, her braids flying as she spun the rope over her head. "We did good," Isaac said, watching them. "We did very good," Lily agreed. They stood together as the sun sank toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose and purple. The air was sweet with the scent of wildflowers and sage, the sound of their children's laughter floating up to them like music. In the distance, cattle lowed softly, and somewhere a meadowlark sang its evening song. This was their life, built from nothing but determination and hope and love. It was a life that had started with a desperate woman counting coins and a cowboy with a generous heart. It was a life that had been forged through hardship and redeemed through kindness. It was a life that would continue long after they were gone, in the children they raised and the values they instilled and the love they shared. It was, Lily thought as Isaac pulled her close and kissed the top of her head, exactly the life they were meant to have. And she would not trade it for anything in the world. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Isaac and Lily grew older together, their love deepening with time rather than fading. They faced droughts and harsh winters, cattle diseases and economic downturns, But they faced everything together, their partnership unshakable. Tommy grew into a man much like Isaac, steady and kind with his father's quiet strength. He eventually married a rancher's daughter from the next valley over, a spirited young woman named Catherine who fit seamlessly into the Grant family. They built a house on the far side of the property and began raising their own family, staying close to the parents who had given them such a strong foundation. John followed his older brother into ranching, but Sarah surprised everyone by developing a passion for medicine. Dr. Hamilton, now quite elderly, took her under his wing, teaching her everything he knew. She became the valley's first female doctor, serving the community with the same compassion her parents had always shown. On a summer evening in 1899, 20 years after their wedding, Isaac and Lily sat on their porch swing watching the sunset. Their grandchildren were scattered across the yard, playing the games that children have always played, their voices bright with joy. Inside the house, Tommy and Catherine were helping with dinner, and John had just ridden in from checking the north pasture. "You remember," Lily said softly, "that day in Dr. Hamilton's office, when I was counting those coins?" "Every detail," Isaac replied. "You were wearing a blue dress, much like this one. Your hair was coming loose from its pins. Your hands were shaking, and I thought you were the bravest person I had ever seen. I was terrified. Brave and terrified are not mutually exclusive." Isaac took her hand, his fingers lacing with hers in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the years. "You were facing the worst thing a mother can face, and you were still fighting with everything you had. And you saved us," Lily said. "You gave me $20 and asked for nothing. Changed the entire course of our lives. Best $20 I ever spent." They laughed together, the easy laughter of people who know each other completely. Lily leaned her head on Isaac's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, marveling as she had so many times before at the unexpected gift of this love. "Sarah is talking about opening a clinic in Fort Garland," she said. "Dr. Hamilton thinks it is a wonderful idea. Of course he does. She will be an excellent doctor." Isaac's voice was warm with pride. "All our children turned out well. We did something right. We loved them," Lily said simply. "We loved them and each other, and we taught them that love matters more than anything. Like someone once taught me." Lily lifted her head to look at him. "I did not teach you to love, Isaac. You always had that capacity. You just needed permission to let yourself be loved in return." "Maybe," Isaac said thoughtfully, "or maybe I needed to meet someone worth changing for. Someone who looked at me and saw not what I had been, but what I could be. I saw what you were, a good man with a kind heart. You saw what I became. There is a difference." They could debate this forever, Lily knew, this question of redemption and worth and change. But the truth was simpler than all of that. They had found each other when they both needed saving, and they had built a life together out of nothing but hope and determination and love. "You know what I am grateful for?" Lily asked. "I am grateful that Tommy got sick. I know that sounds terrible, but if he had not needed medicine, if I had not been in that doctor's office counting coins, we never would have met. Our lives would have been completely different." "I am grateful too," Isaac said quietly, "for every moment that led me to you, even the hard ones, even the painful ones, because they all brought me here to this place, to this life, to you." As the sun sank below the mountains and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they sat together in comfortable silence, surrounded by the family they had created and the love they had built. It was, Lily thought, the most perfect moment of a life full of perfect moments, and it had all started with $12.35, a desperate mother and a cowboy who believed in second chances. Inside the house, someone called them in for dinner. Their grandchildren came running, competing to hold their grandparents' hands. Tommy appeared in the doorway, smiling at his parents with the kind of love and respect that meant they had succeeded in the most important work of their lives. "Coming?" he asked. Isaac stood and helped Lily to her feet, his hand steady and strong as it had been for 20 years. "Coming," he said. They walked into their home together, surrounded by love and laughter and the life they had built from nothing. It was a life that had started with an act of unexpected kindness and grown into something beautiful and lasting. It was a life that proved redemption was possible, that love could heal, that second chances were real. It was, simply and completely, everything they had ever needed. And as Lily sat at the table surrounded by her family, watching Isaac carve the roast while Tommy served the vegetables, and Sarah entertained her nieces and nephews with stories from her medical practice, she sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for the sickness that had brought them together, for the generosity that had saved them, for the love that had redeemed them both, for the cowboy who paid the doctor and asked for nothing, but received everything worth having in return. Their story did not end that night, of course. Stories like theirs do not really end at all. They continue through generations, passed down in family tales and values instilled and love given freely. They continue in the children who grow up knowing that kindness matters, that people can change, that love is always worth fighting for. Tommy's children grew and had children of their own, spreading out across Colorado and beyond, carrying with them the lessons learned from a grandmother who once counted coins in desperation, and a grandfather who chose compassion over indifference. Sarah's clinic became a fixture in Fort Garland, serving the community for decades. John's ranch prospered and expanded, providing employment and stability for countless families. But the heart of the story remained always the same. A woman who needed help, a man who gave it freely, and the love that grew between them, transforming two broken people into something whole. Years later, when Isaac was an old man with silver hair and Lily's hands were gnarled with age, they still sat on their porch swing on summer evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains. They held hands the way they always had, their fingers intertwined, their hearts beating in the rhythm they had found together. "Worth it," Isaac would sometimes say, and Lily always knew what he meant. "Every moment," she would reply, and it was true. Every moment of hardship that had brought them together, every challenge they had faced, every joy they had shared, it had all been worth it. Because love was worth it. Family was worth it. The life they had built together was worth everything. When Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, with Lily beside him and his children gathered around, his last words were, "Best decision I ever made was walking into that doctor's office." Lily lived another 3 years, surrounded by the family that had grown from that single act of kindness. She spent her remaining time telling stories to her great-grandchildren, making sure they understood where they came from and what values they carried forward. She told them about a desperate day in Fort Garland, about a cowboy with kind eyes, about how love could transform everything. And when her time came, she went peacefully, with a smile on her face and her children's hands holding hers. Her last conscious thought was of Isaac, waiting for her, ready to take her hand again and walk with her into whatever came next. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together, with a view of the mountains they had loved. The headstone was simple. Isaac and Lily Grant, they loved well. It was, in the end, the only epitaph that mattered. They had loved well. They had lived well. And they had proved that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we choose compassion over indifference, when we see someone in need and decide to help without asking for anything in return. Because that is how miracles begin. With kindness, with generosity, with love given freely. And that is how they last. Through generations, through stories told and retold, through values passed down and hearts opened wide. The story of Isaac and Lily Grant became a family legend, told at reunions and gatherings, embellished and mythologized, but always holding at its core the same essential truth. Love matters. Kindness matters. And sometimes, when you least expect it, a stranger becomes family and changes everything forever. Their descendants spread across America, carrying with them the legacy of that chance meeting in a Colorado doctor's office. They became teachers and doctors, ranchers and business people, soldiers and artists. But all of them, every single one, grew up knowing the story of their great-great-grandparents who found each other when they both needed saving. And whenever any of them faced a moment of choice, when they had to decide between self-interest and compassion, they would remember. They would think about a cowboy who paid a doctor's bill for a stranger and asked nothing in return. They would think about the love that came from that single act of kindness. And they would choose, as Isaac and Lily had taught them to choose, to be kind. Because that is how love works. It multiplies. It spreads. It transforms not just two people, but all the people who come after them. It creates a legacy that outlasts any individual life. And so, in the end, Isaac and Lily Grant's story was not just about two people finding love in the Wild West. It was about the power of a single good deed to change the world. It was about redemption and second chances. It was about the courage to help when help is needed, to love when love is offered, to build something beautiful from the wreckage of pain. It was, simply and profoundly, a story about what it means to be human at our very best. And that is a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth living, for as long as there are people to tell it. The ranch still stands, passed down through generations of the family, though it looks different now than it did in Isaac and Lily's time. But the house they built still occupies the hill where they once watched sunsets together, and sometimes visitors claim they can feel something in the air there. A warmth, a sense of peace, a feeling that love, real and lasting love, once made this place sacred. And maybe that is the truest legacy of all. Not the land or the buildings or even the descendants, numerous as they are, but the simple truth that love, when it is real, leaves an imprint on the world that never fully fades. It echoes through time, touching people who never knew the original lovers, but who can still feel the power of what they built together. Isaac Grant walked into a doctor's office one September day in 1878 and changed his life forever. He paid $20 for a stranger's child and received in return a family, a home, a love that would sustain him for the rest of his days. Lily Edwards counted coins with trembling hands and found instead a future she had never dared to dream of. She found a man who saw past her poverty and her desperation to the strength beneath. She found a love that healed her grief and gave her hope. Together, they proved that the Wild West was not just a place of violence and hardship. It was also a place where kindness could flourish, where love could grow, where two broken people could find each other and become whole. And that, in the end, is the story worth telling. Not of cowboys and cattle, though those are part of it. Not of the mountains and the frontier, though those provide the setting. But of love. Simple, profound, transformative love. The kind of love that starts with kindness and grows into forever. The kind of love that saves us all.